How did three kids from Michigan turn a half-hour Super 8 movie into a film that grossed millions worldwide and become an instant cult classic? Well, when you have a vision and you're willing to go into financial ruin and you're prepared to put both your cast and crew through emotional and physical torment, well, I guess anything is possible. What is going on, everyone, and welcome to Mindless Mayhem. And on this channel I will be reviewing and discussing anything that falls in the realm of horror, gore, thriller, and basically just complete and utter chaos. My name is Dave Lyons, and in celebration of its 40th anniversary, we will be discussing a film that kick-started a horror franchise and redefined the genre forever. That's right, today we will be talking about the original 1981's The Evil Dead. The film focuses on 5 college students vacationing in an isolated cabin in rural Tennessee. Shortly after arriving to the cabin and getting multiple red flags that they should probably just leave, but never quite getting the hint, like the cellar door flying open in the middle of dinner, they venture down to discover a tape recorder and a book bound in skin and inked in blood. They then proceed to play said tape recorder because why wouldn't you, right? And discover that the book is called Naturam Dumento, or roughly translated to The Book of the Dead. And it contains old Kandarian texts and burial practices and funerary incantations that can summon demons and possess the living. And then, to all of their surprise, crazy, unimaginable shit starts happening, and one by one, they all become possessed by an unseen demonic force and begin killing one another in the most horrific way possible without any chance of escape. But I'm not here to give a full review on this movie, as I'm sure anyone who is watching this content has already seen this movie once or 100 times before. But instead, I want to look back into the story and the behind-the-scenes development of The Evil Dead and just highlight the trials and tribulations that everyone involved in the making of this film had to endure to what I would have to describe as the underdog horror movie of the century. So, let's get into it. Longtime high school friends Sam Raimi, Robert Tappert, and Bruce Campbell were the all-star trio in the making of this film. But as young amateur filmmakers, and with no credibility or a dollar to their names, the road to creating this epic masterpiece wasn't going to be easy to accomplish. They first had to shoot a proof-of-concept film to help build interest for potential investors. And in 1978, with a budget of $1,600 and shot over a 3-day weekend, the trio cut together a Super 8 film titled Within the Woods. Again, with all of them being nobodies in the film industry, they were forced to put on hundreds of screenings in small locations, picking up any donations that they could.
And I remember we showed this first little Super 8 movie in the detergent aisle of a grocery store after it closed to a couple of merchants, and they didn't invest. But we really went to absolutely anybody who was financially capable of losing all their money.
After months of work, they eventually raised $85,000. Not enough to shoot the entire film, but just enough to start production. The Evil Dead utilized a classic strategy, like many low-budget movies before, by sticking the majority of the film in one single location. They found a small abandoned cabin to set up shop and start production, but there were several issues that needed to be fixed before that could ever start happening.
Ellen and Teresa and I walked into this cabin, which of course had no locks, no bathroom, no heat, no electricity, but it did have the remains of cow manure everywhere on the floor, because either cows or goats or whatever animals are down there had walked through it for years and had made it their second home.
The crew had to install windows, a front porch, knock down some walls, remason the fireplace, and basically build it back up just so they could knock it back down for the film. But the major issue was that the cabin did not have a cellar, and what they actually had to do was dig a shallow 4-foot hole in the middle of the cabin to replicate it. And all of the scenes shot down in the cellar were actually done months later in Marshall, Michigan, and in some scenes in Sam Raimi's garage in Franklin, Michigan. Most of the crew stayed at this cabin during the entire production of this film, and with no running water, heat, or electricity, living conditions were not ideal.
Well, it might not be that bad.
No.
Actually, it might be kind of nice.
Yeah.
And with Tennessee experiencing an unexpected cold snap, the crew were forced to bundle together just to stay warm in between shoots.
And it got very cold. I think that was the most difficult part about the shoot. One time, in fact, it was so cold that I couldn't stand the slow torture of freezing to death so slowly. So I actually crawled outside and laid down to die in the cold. But Rob, the poor bastard, covered me with a blanket, and here I am today.
The conditions were so bad during the filming of this movie that actors and crew members were consistently getting hurt on set. An actress lost her eyelashes while making a plastic mold of her face. Actors had cuts, scrapes, and bruises from branches in the woods.
Ow! Ow! God damn it.
Mosquitoes would constantly swarm the crew on set because of the large amounts of Carroll corn syrup used to make the blood. Bruce Campbell even broke his ankle on set, but Sam Raimi saw a negative and turned it into a positive and would consistently whack the broken ankle right before takes just to get a better performance out of Bruce.
Oh, you bastards! Why are you torturing me like this? Why?
Sam Raimi had to improvise most of the camera techniques used to demonstrate that evil force moving throughout the woods and terrorizing our campers. He didn't have enough money to purchase a camera stabilizer, but instead he developed a shaky cam setup and utilized a couple different styles of rigs. The iconic shot of the evil floating through the woods was actually done by Sam placing a camera in the middle of a board and having two people hold either side of it and running full tilt in the woods. The scenes where the evil force is smashing through windows and doors, well, that was done by a Ramo cam. Sam put a camera on front of a board with a T-bar set up in front of it, so the T-bar would actually smash the window before the camera even went through it. It took over 3 years to finish the production of Evil Dead because of massive financial restraints. Several times production had to be shut down for months because they simply just ran out of money. Sam, Robert, and Bruce would have to leave set, clean up, put on their suits, pick up their briefcases, and simply knock on doors and try to get more investors to invest. Bruce Campbell earned the title of executive producer simply because he put up his family's property as collateral just to gain enough funds to finish filming. The Evil Dead released on October 15th, 1981, but didn't really gain any traction with audiences or get a domestic release until months later. It wasn't until the godfather of horror, Stephen King, caught a screening of the film at a Cannes Film Festival in 1982, which at that time did not have a US distributor because most movie studios passed on the film, stating the movie was too raw, scary, and just gruesome. But after watching the film, King fell in love with it and even wrote an article about it in Twilight magazine, calling it the most ferociously original horror film of the year. The crew capitalized on this and asked Stephen King if they could use that quote on any and all advertisement that they could. This would help launch the film into an overnight success and even get picked up by New Line Cinemas and even fund the sequel, Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. The final cost to complete The Evil Dead came to be around $375,000. But since the domestic release, The Evil Dead has grossed around $2.4 million in the US alone and around $29 million worldwide, becoming a box office success and gaining some of their investors 17 times their original investment. That's not bad for three friends who used to refer to themselves as three schmoes in search of a clue. I cannot stress how much I love this movie and its many sequels, remakes, TV shows, and even the musicals that came after it throughout the decades. It's a sadistic, no-holds-barred ride that took an already worn-out concept and flipped it on its head, and presented us with a twisted, disturbing, and brutal new experience. I could go on for hours and continuously talk about all the scenes, all the actors, the camera movements, the dialogue, the iconic moments of this movie, but I just do not have the time. I highly suggest, if you haven't seen this film already, pick it up, rent it, stream it, steal it, whatever you need to do. I highly suggest, if you are a horror fan, this is one that needs to be in your catalog. But join me next time when I look into the sequel of this film, The Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, which is without a doubt my favorite movie out of this franchise, and I'm super excited to get into it. So, like and subscribe, and we will check you next time.